My name is Clara Townsend, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
I am Francisca George, and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Susan Leemans and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom. Yeah.
My name is Zainab Sammaz and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hey guys, my name is Sasha Vickery and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hi, my name is Lloyd Harris and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Jaime Faria and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Yes.
Take one. Well done.
Hi, my name is Jasmine Paulini and I'm a friend of the show.
Wow, Jasmine, you got it in one time.
Ready? Play.
Yo, yeah, I mean, Jaime Faria, he's in the headline. He's in the headline as if he's the biggest story of Wimbledon qualifying that we just had. And because he's a friend of the show, I mean, I can definitely agree with that. He was the last, was he the last? Yeah, he was the last men's qualifier to make it as well. So there was a lot of spotlight on him. In fact, why wouldn't we just start talking about him? And maybe at first I will actually say what we are going to do here. So obviously we're just going to talk about qualifying, and by we I mean me, because nobody else wanted to do this with me. Well, there was a person who said that he wanted but he couldn't, but nonetheless I think I will obviously fare fantastic as usual. In terms of the women's qualifying, yeah, I mean, I didn't watch it all that much. I'm gonna just talk about it very briefly at the end, sorry again. But yes, the men's, obviously I'm so prepared to talk about. And Jaime Faria, friend of the show, as you can see, hopefully by the score lines and the results, he totally dominated this section. And this was one where we were just looking at it and thinking, yeah, everybody can qualify here. You've got the, guys who can play very well in quicker conditions, like Cazaux or Marterer, I suppose, right? Jacquet, who's going to be this natural surfaces kind of guy, definitely. Or I don't know, just someone random. Why not? Why not someone like Gaubas? And Piros has done pretty well at Wimbledon qualies before. But no, Jaime Faria just comes in, defeats everybody. It's good that he's finally healthy. Obviously, since the beginning of the season, he's had so many positive signs, but then the injuries, the struggle, all the retirements mid-match. Shows up on grass in Nottingham, makes a quarter, and apparently it got him to a level where he actually is pretty competitive on grass now. And if you think about his game, yeah, it makes sense. We've had some conversations with the founder of Talking Tennis before on what is Jaime Faria's best surface, what are the best conditions for his game. I think the topic is very controversial, even among Jaime Faria and ourselves. I think we would actually have different varying opinions. Grass, though, is definitely fine. He has a big serve. He has a big game, sure. And yeah, he just totally bossed this. Obviously, he lost one set, as you can see, but Wimbledon qualifying being best of 5 on the men's side, yeah, I mean, it's perfectly acceptable. And in total, he just really made this very open section on paper just look like it's not. I mean, on the screen right now, we have August Holmgren, and this is also an unofficial friend of the show, somebody who obviously we talked a lot to in Porto. And if you guys saw the content from that event last year, there were so many press conferences with him, which were 15 minutes. Very, articulate, very interesting guy to talk to. In terms of his game, though, this season was pretty rough. I mean, 6-14 for the year going into this tournament. And because all these points that he picked up, all these points that he had last year in the summer, so the Challenger 50 he won in Spain. Sorry, I don't remember if it was Pozo Blanco or Segovia. I think it was Pozo Blanco because Alex Martinez in the Segovia final. So after that, he obviously goes to Porto, and it's a pretty weak 1-5. He also picks that up. That's why he's even, in Grand Slam qualifyings right now. So he was going to be in big trouble. Is he out of the woods? I don't know. But this is just career changing. 6-14 for the year, and you come in and you do this. You secure your Grand Slam main draw debut. Gene says, wow, that scoreline. And honestly, all matches that Holmgren played were just insane. 4-6, 1-3 down against Giles Hussey in the opening round. And you might think, who the hell is Giles Hussey? And Giles Hussey was the favorite against August Holmgren. And I thought it was probably correct considering the surface. Mikhail Kukushkin, obviously an excellent flat surface player. slick, low bouncing surface player with the flat hitting that he possesses. Also, someone who obviously was a factor in Porto last year, coincidentally. And also, he goes 6-4, 3-1 up on Holmgren, just like Hassi did. And then in the qualifying, Mariano Navone knows who Giles Hassi is, that's for sure, because he lost to him in Eastbourne last year. But yeah, I mean, final round, what Gene said, that scoreline, that was one of the weirdest, wildest matches I've seen today, for sure, and probably in the last month or so, and maybe even in the last year or so. Obviously, 4th set tiebreak, Holmgren saves 3 match points. Seems like he's completely, turned it around. 5-3, 40-15. Suddenly Vatanuki starts connecting with like every return and is just a goat. Then obviously next game as well, he saves 3 more match points. 3 in a row, by the way, on serve. So to get to that breaker, obviously it was very tense from both players. Holmgren made like 2 double faults probably, I think, in that breaker itself, which, usually should kind of disqualify you from winning a 5th set tiebreak, I would suggest, but not in this case. I mean, obviously both players were so nervy, and he does end up taking it, which obviously spurred also like a massive reaction from him. This is where the passion is, right? Grand Slam qualifying final round, this is where it actually like changes the lives of the players in many cases. And that reaction from Holmgren was absolutely just telling of how massive this was for him. In terms of his grass game, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I quite understand it. When we were watching him in Porto, it was like slow, bouncy. The kick serve was so good. And here he's just succeeding at something completely different. So, yeah, I mean, I don't really know what to tell you. I don't think he's one of the strongest players in the main draw here. But amazing story nonetheless. And the fact that it's not Vatanuki, it's not Colton Smith, it's not even Kukushkin or I don't know, Sabo Wild coming out of this section, but August Holmgren is insane. Since Samuel is mentioning Chris Rodesh, maybe the producer can move us up to section 1, where Chris Rodesh and also Marton Fucovic, who was mentioned in the chat just a second ago, that's where they were existing this tournament. I don't know if we have the producer around right now, but when he is able to, section 1 on the screen would be helpful. Anyway, Chris Rodesh, yeah, that's probably the toughest qualifying path that we saw this event. The fact that he had to go through Gigante, Layal, and Fucovic and beat them all. Somebody just told me also that they were watching like some content with him 3 weeks ago, basically content that he was posting on his Instagram or whatever, and he was training on grass for the first time. And the first matches were horrible. And he shows up at Wimbledon with this insane level. I'm not talking about Holmgren anymore, by the way, the producer. If you can move to number 1, Chris Rodesh, since he was mentioned in the chat. Okay, never mind. Well, I'll just talk about it off the top of my head anyway. Oh, it's there? Okay, it's not on my screen, but maybe my screen is... okay, on my screen, it's still Faria and Holmgren. That's very weird. Anyway, if you guys can see it, that's fantastic. So basically what I was going to talk about is that this is probably the toughest qualifying path. I know, yeah, Gigante, sure, grass court, no idea really. He's been very good in Grand Slam qualifying. He's also been decent at Wimbledon, but okay, yeah, now I see it. But okay, that's maybe not like amazing that he beat him 6-2, 6-4. Nobody cared about that result at the time, right? Nobody just thought much of it. Just, okay, there's still Fucovic and Layal in that section. Layal, who just reached quarterfinals in Hertogenbosch, actually the very same week that Fucovic reached quarterfinals in Stuttgart. Fucovic, former Wimbledon quarterfinalist. Svajda also playing extremely well this grass court season. Mark Layal obviously last year qualified and played Alcaraz in a very good match on center court, I think. And yeah, nobody really cared that Rodesh beat Gigante because there's still so many big guys around. And he just comes out and beats all of them. Somebody in my Twitter comments today compared his performances to Jerzy Janowicz at 2013 Wimbledon, which I think is a bit of a stretch, okay? That's, yeah, no, let's leave it at that. I mean, I'm definitely very interested to see what sort of a caliber of a player he's going to run into in the main draw. Could very much go like many ways, I think. As in, he keeps up this crazy level and beats somebody who's like 70, 80 in the rankings, but also gets a high seed and probably doesn't do much. That's also possible. But to kind of like turn his, inexperience on grass into this in 3 weeks and to get through all of these guys, I don't quite understand how he did it, even though obviously Chris has been an improving player former college standout. There's going to be a fair few of them in this draw, some even current, right? I mean, okay, Colton Smith didn't get through, but Tarvet did, I guess. But yeah, Chris Rodesch, anyway, first Luxembourger to play a Grand Slam main draw since Gilles Miller. Gilles Miller, I believe, retired at the end of 2018, so 2018 US Open would have been his last one. Well, Gilles Miller made quarterfinals at Wimbledon and defeated Rafa twice, but, you know, maybe not yet, Chris Rodesch, but nonetheless, to beat Gigante, Layal, Fucsovics, it's insane. And honestly, today I was just like, okay, why didn't I just pick Marton Fucsovics to qualify? You know, are you an idiot, Damien? That's what I was telling myself. But no, I mean, Chris Rodesch also defeated him. And also, by the way, Marton Fucsovics is the first lucky loser already announced because Borna Coric withdrew a couple of hours after the qualifying. So the Hungarian Hulk, or however you want to call him, is also going to be in the main draw. So at least that's good for him. Obviously, as I said, a former quarterfinalist, excellent player, phenomenal slice, especially on the grass. So that's going to be fine. Since we already have Filip Misolic on the screen, obviously that's also one of the biggest stories that he was able to make it. Just on Saturday, I watched him win a challenger in Poznań in Poland on clay. So not much time to prepare. Also not much grass court experience. To be honest with you, not much of a grass game in my opinion too. Like the serve is kind of gonna be punished against most stronger opponents, I think. He's got a good slice. Like very often he is not too confident in his topspin backhand. So even on clay, he uses the slice a ton. So that's good. But also his forehand is like insanely precise, but there's a lot of spin in it. It's not exactly the best fit for grass. So first of all, I mean, the confidence probably got him through in many ways because, well, the first two rounds, as you can see, maybe the opponents weren't that difficult, at least in terms of, you know, this particular surface. Benny Hassan was outplaying Misolic the entire time, like literally the entire match. But he couldn't get over the line in sets 2 and 3. Set 2 was only 1 set point in the breaker. Set 3 was 5-2 and 2 set points, and then also obviously another breaker that he lost. So, I mean, if Misolic is 20-2 since the start of May, you know, that's kind of how it goes, right? He's going to have that confidence in the key moments. He's going to have that incredible just ability to keep going. And that's also what he was doing in Poznań, to be honest. I mean, Poznań, he just basically crushed everybody, sure. And there weren't that many tough moments if you look at it from that perspective, sure. But what I also liked was kind of how like he kept believing in just that forehand, whatever happened, you know, no matter how low the ball was as well, no matter how uncomfortable it was, he still always tried to find like the most risky, the most precise angle, and it worked every single time. You know, the guy could literally play tennis on whatever right now and he'd be good. 20-2 since the start of May. One lost to Luka Van Asch, the other to Novak Djokovic. Yeah, I mean, he's insane. So I do kind of, you know, feel some sort of surprise that he qualified simply because I didn't think he was going to translate his form to this surface. I think he was somewhat fortunate to avoid Tristan Skulkate, who lost to Benjamin Hassan. But then again, Hassan also had that skill set to put pressure on him, to just basically take time away, not allow him to have fun with the forehand, not allow him to do much. But, you know, Misolic has a lot of options right now, has a lot of confidence, and he was able to steal sets 2 and 3 because I do think he kind of stole this match. But that's the privilege of having so much, just so much belief in yourself right now. We can move on wherever, to be honest. I mean, this is kind of like disjointed, but who cares? I don't know if we have the producer around, but I will maybe check who is below Misolic. I don't remember who is in the third section and everything. But yeah, third section was Leandro Riedi, so that's also a pretty big story. Oh, thank you. And actually Mannarino as well. I think we even mentioned him in the title. Both of them obviously also names that people will be, will know. There are a few qualifiers that are mostly unknown to the general public, but these two definitely shouldn't be. Riedi, I mean, back then a former, Roland Garros junior runner-up, but whatever, that's many years ago. For the last few years, we've definitely been seeing him on the tour just anytime he's healthy, top 100 level easily. Such an aggressive game as well. Playstyle fits the grass. Last year, he made the Surbiton final. Then he was kind of unfortunate at Wimbledon. I mean, unfortunate. Okay, yeah, it was his fault that he was 2-love up on Alex Bolt. by the way, another big story from qualifying that we will get to. But anyway, kind of his fault, obviously, that he didn't convert that 2-love lead in sets into making his first Grand Slam main draw. But also, really, in the last few months, in the last, a year or so, he's mostly been out of the courts, right? He's mostly not been able to play. 2 knee surgeries after, well, first of all, injuring his right knee last year. And then it turned out that the first operation wasn't successful enough, that he still needed some further work done. So that's obviously not an ideal situation. And that's not even the first time that he's been like out with something for a few months. Even though he's such a young player, right? 23 is he, or 22? I don't remember. No, I think he's 2002 born, so 23. Anyway, this was only his third event of 2025. So if we had any like doubts whether Leandro Riedi was going to qualify, that was the basis of them. But he played well in Ilkley, making the quarters, only losing a tight match to Zachary Svajda. And now... yeah, I mean, this is the first surgery. And then in January this year, he had another one. And that's why he only came back in Oeiras in May. And that's why this was only his third tournament. And Jean is very glad for Riedi, and I'm glad too, because finally he makes that Grand Slam main draw for the first time. He had 2 prior third round appearances. I mentioned the Bolt one, but also there was that Sverchina Australian Open match where he only wins 4 games despite being a massive favorite. Finally, he does it. Honestly, the draw was very good, but it turns out Federico Agustin Gomez was able to adapt to grass courts very, very well as well. So the second round, I thought, was played at an extremely high quality, much, much, much higher than the final round today against Hamish Stewart, where, I mean, yeah, it was just a match that really kind of had to win, but it wasn't pretty. But who cares? He's in the main draw. Nobody wants to play him, but in terms of best of 5 fitness, we still kind of have to see whether against a better opponent he will last, an entire match. But if we're kind of treating this season, because Riedi started it in May, if we're treating this season as something that's kind of lost, and then he's just gonna hit his stride in 2026 or maybe in late 2025, then qualifying here is a massive, massive achievement and boost. So, yeah, that's good to see, because obviously, as I said, his level has been, for a while, he's been just, top 100 anytime he's healthy, and that's like lowballing it. Mannarino, that's another big story. A veteran, obviously, grass courts, very, very suitable for him. This year, I mean, he's been just playing like he's just going to retire, that's basically the feeling that you had over the first 5 months, right? That with this sort of level, with these sort of results, it's just impossible for Mannarino to even try to keep going next year. Or maybe he just retires, I don't know. Because Gasquet retired at the French, and that made sense for him. But like, does Mannarino retire at the French? Probably not, considering he's just completely awful on clay and hates it. So I wasn't sure, but then grass courts kind of, kicked in, and he looked much better from the get-go. Obviously, his ball is still very unpleasant. He's still so experienced. Yeah, Conner Island, indeed. And yeah, I do think in this particular draw, I was looking at him as the main favorite to win. League 2, though, was not that pleasant for him to play. I think Mannarino would much rather face someone like, even Galan from this section, or even like Budkov-Kier again. If he could face Budkov-Kier, the Wimbledon champion from last year, obviously, in the juniors, if he could face him again, or just any random power hitter, he'd probably have a much easier time today. But against someone as consistent as Tu, he kind of needed some time to like start thinking more clearly on the court. It was very windy as well in Roehampton today. Obviously, in the end, it worked out fine. So I think this is just a good representation of the boost that Mannarino got with the start of this grass court season. Also, funny to think about this, because last year, his grass season was awful. So last year, it wasn't enough to kind of like get him out of the slump he was in. It was only like late in the season that he started picking up some wins. Now he does it on grass, and he's still a pleasure to watch on grass. I think just maybe before the grass swing we wouldn't have expected that, but he definitely just started playing much, much better. And you can see that it's just so tough to play against the guy. You have to think so much, you have to be very patient, and you're never gonna get the ball like in your comfort zone when hitting. You're never gonna get your favorite contact points, so you might as well like not try. You kind of have to just play his game, and that's a powerful tool to have if you force the opponents to kind of go on your turf. We can move on, definitely. I don't presently remember what was number 5 and 6, but we can just move on there. Okay, yeah, maybe not the biggest stories here, so we'll be a little bit more brief here. So we're seeing Mannarino as a qualifier. Yeah, he was actually on a massive streak. He's still on a massive streak of making Wimbledon main draws. I think it's 12. But before the French, he was on a massive streak of making slam main draws since, like, I don't know, 2013 or something like that. And then at the French, obviously, he also played qualies and didn't make it. But yeah, I totally get that sentiment. Kind of like it was with Cilic at the French, of course, where he was also playing his first qualifying since ages. Yeah, not the biggest stories here. James McCabe, Australian, has some experience on grass. Actually started the grass win pretty poorly, but then plays himself into form. Good win over Goyo, and especially today, I think, against Barrios Vera. Barrios Vera hits such an unpleasant, attacking, flat ball. Basically, even on clay, he just blasts the serve, blasts the return, and goes to the net anyway. So, like, to grass, it translates very well. I think he qualified before like 2 or 3 times as well. So it wasn't that easy for sure to beat him for James. Good achievement for him. He played a couple of some main draws before as a wild card, of course, in Australia. Right now he's making his first one kind of like on merit, which I think might be somewhat more special, just that feeling, that moment of getting into the main draw when you beat someone especially as good as Barrios Vera. I think that's very nice. But the 5th seed also missed a bit of a trick. I think after the good win over Rocha, maybe he would have expected to prevail today. Maybe he can still get in. In the lucky loser draw, we have Fucsovics, Garin, Barrios Vera, and Lajovic. We don't know what the order was. Well, we know right now that Fucsovics was the one who was, well, first of all, ranked highest, but also was drawn first out of these 4 players. So is it Garin? Is it Barrios Vera? Is it Lajovic next? No idea. But it could be that Barrios Vera still gets into the event, and he would be pretty dangerous. I think him and Garin. Lajovic, yeah, I mean, he won't really improve the quality of the event on grass. Let's be clear about that. And number 6 as well, Valentin Royer, very good year, obviously. Very close to the top 100 right now. Number 112, I think, before this week. He's won 2 challengers, made 2 more finals. Obviously, all of that is clay courts, but some of them are quick. And he's never had issues succeeding in hard courts. We would expect that on grass, with time, he could maybe also be okay. But this is actually a pretty solid section that he got through. Hüsler, obviously a strong grass courter, someone with a massive serve, net play as well. Uchiyama, kind of similar. Well, not a massive serve, I would say, but definitely a very talented, skillful player in terms of the touch and the ability to close down the net as well. So also a good win. And today I was expecting Droguet to be a bit more of a bother, definitely to him. But with the 2 Frenchmen who basically, both of them had never really played on grass, like in the long run, outside of Wimbledon qualies. Royer was clearly much, much stronger. I don't know if it's a big story, but, Valentin was there at the French, of course, with a wild card, losing to Galan in 5 sets. So just like James McCabe, he locks up his first Grand Slam main draw on merit, on his own. And maybe that's the biggest thing here. Also, grass, obviously, a surface he never really competed on. But if, as you can see, like this section was, somewhat like open, let's say, Royer, Hüsler, Uchiyama, I guess I considered all of these to be kind of at a similar level. And it was the Frenchman who ended up claiming this the win here. I think we can definitely move on. As I said, these 2 probably not the biggest stories we're going to have in the qualifying here. Maybe the next ones aren't either, although you could argue that Cazaux, it's kind of a similar story to Riedi, right? Maybe his issues haven't been as just violent, let's say, as Leandro's. Arthur, if you look at his season, he still played a ton of events. He just had a bit break of like 2 or 3 months, I think, between Miami and Geneva. Since then, he really hasn't regained his groove, let's say. That was, I think, a right elbow injury that he had. And basically, just before this tournament, I think he was only able to play 1 grass court match, which he lost to Mannarino in one of the UK events. And, well, he's still a very good grass courter. He loves playing in the forecourt. He's got that great serve for his height. I do agree, Jean, absolutely, that he is dangerous. It's just a matter of like whether he is already back to his best or not. But, last year, 4th round in Australia at Wimbledon, he also won a match, defeating Zizou Bergs in 5 sets. I don't really remember who he lost to be honest, in the second round, but it wasn't a competitive match, if memory serves right. But definitely 5 sets against Zizou. I think he was 2-love up, and then it ended up in the 5th set tiebreak. And in terms of his qualifying draw, I think when we saw the, on when was it? Sunday? Yeah, I think the draw was released on Sunday. I think when we saw it, we were like, okay, so Cazaux doesn't have rhythm, right? Cazaux does not have rhythm at all. But if you look at his section, yeah, he has a great chance to qualify. And I think it's amazing for Arthur that he was able to take advantage of this, because right now it was not a given. It should have been a gimme, this kind of a draw for Cazaux on grass. And I do agree he has a game for grass, obviously. I think this should have been a gimme, just given his form, given his lack of rhythm. It wasn't. And actually, he kind of made it so. Today, there was an incident as well against Lajovic where Dusan kind of like fell over the net and was pretty painful. But I don't think it really bothered him in the long run. For a game or two, he was very cautious, but then it started raining and there was a bit of a delay. So I think in the end, it wasn't the biggest factor. But obviously, Cazaux, Lajovic, like who has a better grass game, I think it's obvious. Number 8 was quite interesting, though, because we had Garin, also insane form. I think if he won today, I mentioned that Misolic is 20-2 since the start of May. I think since the same week, but the run started late April. But since the same week, Garin would have been like 20-3 since if he won this, and that's basically based on like Poznan semi, which he lost to Misolic. So they could have been in a very similar spot in a way. Although Filip, of course, had the Grand Slam run and Garin lost in qualifying at Roland Garros. But nonetheless, what I'm more kind of focused on is that Garin was here. Maybe some were thinking Habib could be a better grass courter than he turned out to be. Paul Jab, obviously, last year had some massive wins. Shelton in Mallorca. Then at Wimbledon, he also goes 5 with Sabo Wild. He went 5 with Paul Kyrgios. Nick Kyrgios in the past. Giulio Zeppieri, I was not really expecting. Of course, he has that perfect record in Roland Garros qualies, 12-0, 4 consecutive years. But that's also somebody who is like not defending any points in the second half of the season, right? Last year, he didn't even play Wimbledon because he got injured in Sassuolo, which is a week before Wimbledon, is it? Or 2 weeks before Wimbledon. Anyway, never mind. And Garin, a former quarterfinalist, a former 4th rounder as well. In another year, I think 4th round was 2021 and quarterfinalist was 22. So, okay, yeah, it was the pointless edition. Haha. Some good wordplay coming from that, of course. But yeah, no ranking points that year. But of course, all the players were trying their best. And it was still a very good run from him. Absolutely. I think Djokovic, maybe it was who stopped him in 21, 22. Was it Nick, maybe? I don't even remember right now. But yeah, Garin Zeppieri, that's a tough loss for him to stomach, I think, today, especially as it seemed like for a while, he might come back. He was 2-4 down in the 5th and he's 5-4 up then later, I think. Obviously, that's also another kind of like Barrios Vera. That's another clay courter who is very good on grass because he actually has a very flat game. Maybe not quite as aggressive as Thomas, but definitely still someone who can ramp up the pace, who can close down the net on this court and kind of, not play the same way as he would on clay, but be very, very effective at it, which he's displayed before and just wasn't able to do it today. Nice for Zeppieri, though, because obviously on grass from him, we hadn't really seen this before. Not at all. Yeah, I think we can move on. Was it 9 and 10 that we already talked about? No, probably not, right? Yeah, I think it was 11 and 12. So anyway, Baby Zhukayev, well, another big serve flat hitter, I suppose, and somebody who is very much reliant on that serve. But, on grass, it can work. The guy lost a lot of momentum on clay courts because obviously that doesn't suit him at all. But now he's back. Last year, he actually made a big upset in Wimbledon qualies. That was against Medjedovic in the second round. Then didn't follow it up because he played Quentin Alice in the third round. And you might remember that Alice obviously went to the third round and the main draw and almost beat Holger Rune. Was 2-love up, I think, and then had this 4th set tiebreak, which he choked away. So that was not really on Zhukayev, but when he got Medjedovic into this very serve-oriented, just, botting contest, he outaced him 27-25, saved all 8 breakpoints or something like that, and yeah, just survived. So here, Hanfmann, that was a very good win from him. Obviously, Yannick was on a good streak of qualifying. He made it at the French, made it in Stuttgart, made it in Halle, was considered probably the favorite of this one, although some people also pointed to Boyer, some to Trotter. I personally picked Trotter. who was 0 out of 17 on breakpoints against Pavlovic. And I wonder what would have happened, if Trotter played Zhukayev. I think it would have been just same players kind of in this matchup. They're not exactly the same in general, but in this matchup, I think both of them, on grass especially, it would be just who gets more first serves in and who gets more block returns in. Like, that's literally it. Anyway, yeah, Zhukayev, definitely very serve-oriented tennis, flat hitter as well, not much spin on the ground strokes. But on grass, this is very dangerous. And, it's not a massive shock that he qualified, but certainly the win over Huntman was quite good. And Alex Bolt, I mean, that's my favorite story of the qualifying. I don't know if you guys noticed, but I've had this meme for a while, right? Because last year when I started just reading basically that, well, Alex Bolt has played a lot of ITFs on grass that year. And I'm just thinking, oh, wow, the guy has like 130 matches on grass courts in his career. How much is that, compared to other players? And I think last year when I checked all the guys in the Wimbledon main draw, the list was like Murray, Djokovic, Mannarino, Evans, Bolt, something like that. Anyway, that was the top 5, and number 6 was Jordan Thompson. Thompson hasn't played since on grass as much as Bolt has. Murray is, of course, off the tour. Djokovic, Evans, Mannarino, they will all be in the main draw. So I think in the main draw this year, Alex Bolt will be number 4 in terms of grass court experience. Well, I mean, 134, I think it is by now. Obviously, yes. Always when I mention that meme and I say, ultimate grass court specialist about him, there's that one annoying guy on Twitter who just says, look at his records, at Wimbledon, only one match won ever in the main draw. He's only won like challengers and ITFs before. No, just stop it. He's really, really good on grass. He proved it here, and it was fantastic to watch. Today against Landarus, a masterclass. That was kind of just like Mannarino in a way, where he just never allows the guy to hit a comfortable ball. And of course, he also has, the net skills, the lefty serve. Almost beat Pablo Llamas Ruiz at the French on clay, which was just so shocking because he hasn't won a match on clay since 2019. So if we're talking about specialists, for surfaces, you can see that, if somebody hasn't won a match on clay in 7 years or 6 years, and he's played 134 on grass, which is a shocking amount considering how short the grass season is, also has won over 70% of them. Yeah, it makes sense. He was very good in the lead up swing. He qualified, nothing surprising, right? It's the ultimate grass court specialist, once more proving his worth. Last year, obviously, as I mentioned before, he did qualify as well, although he had to come back from 0-2 down against Leandro Riedi. This time, not so much. No issues like that in the final round. Obviously, he defeated Landaluce pretty easily. Let's move on. 11 was Faria, I think. So we already chatted about that. I don't remember who 12 was, but we also chatted about that when we were... August Holmgren, of course, another friend of the show. Both can be pretty dangerous too, says Jean. Yeah, we already talked about that, so we can just move on to 13 and 14. But Jean, when it comes to Bolt being dangerous, I don't know if you remember last year, but he drew Casper Ruud in the opening round. And everybody was just saying, oh, wow, this is a chance, right? And he lost in 3, and it wasn't a good match. And I have some PTSD with that. I mean, I wasn't exactly like picking him to win or something like that, I don't think. But basically, people were treating this as a 50-50 match. And that the difference in class, like the quality was visible. So I don't know. We'll see. Obviously, we don't have the draw yet. Usually when the qualifying finishes, we very quickly know. Can you guess who the players are? I don't think I can see the emojis, can I? Anyway, in terms of, usually when a Grand Slam qualifying draw, whatever competition finishes, we know more or less where the players landed because, well, the draw has been previously made. Right now, we have to wait for the draw ceremony until Friday morning. So basically, we still have no idea. But yeah, it's going to be very fascinating to see where some of these guys land, including Alex Bolt, the ultimate grass court specialist. 13 and 14, some big stories here because Mochizuki has had a perfect grass court swing. Like, okay, perfect would have been winning Nottingham in Ilkley, but he was amazing. He made the semis in Ilkley, lost to Pennington Jones, and then in the final in Nottingham, he lost to Marin Cilic. And he comes in and also takes the qualies. Is it super easy? Sorta, I guess. Pierre Gerber was somebody he struggled with like 2 weeks ago, and he defeats him 6-1, 6-1, which on grass is a pretty shocking result. Merigeni Alves, well, not much form, but also someone who's qualified for Wemby before. And obviously Dominic Stricker, who was probably the story of the section until the final round, considering all the issues that he's been facing recently, not only difficulties with winning matches and like the ranking, but also the mental side of things, which we've heard, and contemplating retirement even, which we don't know how serious he is about. But well, I think he also stopped working with his long-term coach recently, so there's just a lot of mess right now with Stricker, especially the injury. So it was a great story, and kind of like with Riedi, if he qualified, it would have been such a big boost. But Mochizuki ended up being too strong, and Mochizuki, if you guys remember, was in 2019 he won Wimbledon Juniors, and obviously in the pros, at least up to this year, it wasn't as much of a bed of roses or whatever. But he's got the hand skills, he's got the touch. If you don't like overpower him completely, which some players have been able to do in the pros a lot more than in the juniors, 100%. I think if you give him space, he's still pretty dangerous, and he's never had a better opportunity. And I'm saying this before the draw, obviously. He might get Yannick Sinner, but I don't think he's ever had a better opportunity at winning a Grand Slam major match. He's 0-3. He's played Wimbledon 23. He qualified for that. He played, and I think lost to Tommy Paul. He played Australia 24, and he played Roland Garros 24. And I think at Australia 24, he was a lucky loser and lost to Mahach. And then in 24 Roland Garros, he lost to Hurkacz, and it was a 5-setter, obviously, because he played Hubert Hurkacz, so it had to be a 5-setter. Yes, he did beat Fritz, actually. That was Tokyo, his best run of his career so far in the pros. 2023 Tokyo semis, I think. So yeah, he did beat Fritz. Was then pretty close to the top 100, but didn't really have like that consistent challenger level, gain of points and income, let's say. And after that, obviously, these points went off the rankings and he fell off again. But now this season has been pretty solid for him already. But then the grass court swing, as I mentioned, Ilkley semis, Nottingham final, qualifying for Wimbledon. Amazing. Speaking of amazing, Oliver Tarvet, somebody who before this week I hadn't watched. I've heard some good stuff about him. University of San Diego, he's very good there. Just, the record is insane. I don't remember the exact numbers, but like 51-8 in singles or something like that. He's one of the best players in the system. And then also in the limited pro appearances that he's been picking up, he's been insane too. Since the start of the 2023 season, he's played 14 ITF events and he's won 5 of them, which is just insane ratio, especially for somebody who only plays, ITFs 2-3 months a year because of his college duties. So to get a wild card here, obviously that was that was his first, by the way. So kind of like the jump from that to Wimbledon Grand Slam qualifying, that was also going to be something that we had no idea how he was going to take. And this section as a whole, because most of us were just like ignoring Oliver Tarvet and thinking that's probably a bit too much for now. But let's see how he does. Like that should be a good match, at least his first time to like check out. And this section just looked like Atman and blocks. They're so strong. Like this is a section dominated by the seeds. And you know what Oliver Tarver did? He beat them both. And you could see how much more comfortable he is off the ground on grass than both of them. Atman, I think that Terence had a horrible opening set. But after that, it's just like a good battle. And, Oliver moves much better. Oliver keeps the ball in play. Oliver is not as like frustrated by some of the, well, maybe not bad bounces, but by some of the more like low skidding shots that you have to take on. Blocks today, he really outplays, especially of the backhand corner. We've seen so many players do it this year with Alex, where, basically they're just able to keep him in that long backhand exchange. And most of the time, he's not going to do anything crazy out of that wing. And Tarvet just has a stronger, more complete all-rounded game. I don't know if he's quite as special as, of a talent as Blocks is. We will kind of learn that over the next few years. But if you're going to tell me that at some point Tarvet might have like a Jacob Fernley-ish run, let's say he finishes college and then just instantly is good enough to, let's say, win challengers. Yeah, why not? I mean, it sounds possible with 2 more years that he has left in San Diego, I think. So crazy run for sure. 719, as you can see in the rankings. I mean, he was obviously barely playing pros due to his college duties, but nonetheless, yeah, great stuff. This year, I think he only played 2 ITFs. One of them he won, one of them he lost to Trevor Svajda. So, yeah, this has to be very exciting for especially the college fans, but also obviously just Brits. We've had some chat messages in the Talking Tennis group. One more player they will be obnoxious about. Anyway, let's move on to I think the last 2 men's qualifiers that we have, which one of them we also mentioned in the title, and both of them are big names. Both of them are names that have done stuff before at Wimbledon. Both of them have been into the third round. Nicolas Jarry in 2023 and Nicolas Basilashvili. By the way, Nicolas and Nicolos. I think they also qualified after each other because of the thread I do on Twitter. I'm aware of this because I remember just like typing their names right after, and I was like, oh, Nicolos and Nicolas, nice. But anyway, Nicolas Jarry, he made the third round at Wimbledon in 23. Went 5 sets with, almost went 5 sets with Alcaraz is what I'm trying to say. 5-2 up in the fourth. And Nicolas Basilashvili also made the third round at Wimbledon, I believe, twice, 2022 and 2017. Grass not really the favorite surface of Basilashvili, but he's had an excellent year of like kind of returning to the slams and doing damage again. 9-0 in Grand Slam qualies, so he might go for that calendar Grand Slam of sorts. I think the last player to do it was, last year it was, or 2 years ago. I don't even remember if it was last year or 2 years ago, but Yulia Starodubtseva did it definitely. But on the men's side, I believe the last one could have been Elias Zimmer maybe. In 2015, there was also like somebody who was very close. I think Van de Zandschulp maybe made three as a qualifier and 1 as a lucky loser in 21. Anyway, yeah, would be an incredible achievement for Basilashvili. His section was pretty nice, but still he had to defeat Coleman Wong 7-6, 7-6. I don't know if we have the producer, by the way, but yeah. Oh, sorry, that was like some Windows, whatever. Anyway, yeah, what I'm trying to say is that he had to beat Coleman Wong in the second round, so it wasn't that obvious. But still, the draw was not that. Oh yeah, thank you. The draw was pretty pleasant to Basilashvili in the end. So this was probably not the toughest qualifying draw of the 3 that he's gotten through this year. But at Wimbledon, he kind of needed maybe a little bit of help, and well, he got it. But also, obviously, got it for himself, right? That's, he stepped up himself too. Speaking of stepping up, though, Nicolas Jarry was flawless. I mean, three wins over very good players, especially today, and he just never really loses step here. He's just obviously without losing a set. Is he the only qualifier that didn't lose a set? I wasn't thinking about it before, but I think that might be the case. Because even Faria, who kind of dominated his section, he lost a set for sure. Tarvet lost a set to Blocks today. Bolt lost a set for sure to Spizziri in the second round. I think Royer also lost a set, right? Because Royer lost a set to Hisler in the first round. So yeah, Nicolas Jarry was actually the only qualifier on the men's side who didn't drop a set. Which on the women's it's a little easier because the last match is also best of 3. Here it's best of 5, and he really needed that. He is a guy, of course, who fell off so much in the rankings this year after he didn't defend the Rome title. I don't know if I quite agree with our friend Jose Morgado, who I think quote tweeted something that I wrote today and said that like it was so weird that Jarry had this drop off in the rankings. I don't really get that sentiment. Like with his playstyle, this has been happening to him in many, like to a different extent maybe, but most of his career, right? When he came back after the suspension, he was also hanging around like a 150-ish ranking for a while. So I don't think it's ever really a gimme that he's going to just randomly, pick it up and just start blasting everybody off the court. But he certainly was this week. And the whole grass court swing, I mean, there was just a sense of stability restored in Jarry's game. He wasn't perfect. He wasn't amazing. When he played Mannarino, it was kind of like even painful, like uncomfortable to watch how he was trying to, with this giant body of his, just get to all these low balls from Adrian. And yeah, I mean, agility is definitely a strong suit. And on grass, that is actually a very important part of the game, right? The inventiveness. You kind of have to play some shots, let's say, improvise them. And he doesn't have that, but he does have the big weapons. And this week they were absolutely on point. Klein also, by the way, third slam, third final round. But I think in Australia he qualified, and then Roland Garros and Wimbledon he loses. But today he just didn't have anything to say against Jarry, so it's not quite like at the French where he was blowing the match away against Hugo Blanchet. Anyway, Jarry was perfect. Jarry was the only player not to drop a set, so kudos to him for that. I think that he was absolutely amazing. And that's more or less it. I mean, when it comes to the women's, we should talk about it a little bit more briefly, though, because I mean, I always say this, but basically with the amount of what was I even gonna say? Yeah, I mean, with just the focus that I put on covering men's qualifying, on watching it, on following it, and on doing a billion things around it, I just don't really have time. But there are a few names. One of them we have in the title that we can definitely mention here as important. Oh, we can just do it like this. Yeah, we probably shouldn't even get into like draws and everything because I didn't watch most of these matches anyway. But yeah, so who's a pretty big story here? I think Pari will be fun to watch on grass. Obviously she's been, former junior #1, but also she's been top 50 in the pros and has that one-hander, has that slice, has the ability to go to the net as well. But then obviously lots of injuries. She fell out of the top 100. As you can see, because she's even playing this, the qualifying here. So I think she will be pretty fun to watch on this surface for sure. Taylor Townsend we have in the headline. Obviously, one of the best doubles players in the world, if not the best, but also somebody who in singles is known to use serve and volley tactics, is known to slice approach, is known to kind of like focus on the stuff that on grass makes you good typically. So Taylor is also obviously somebody that we should pay attention to. Iva Jovic, I think at 17 or 16 is playing her 4th slam already. So that's a big achievement. Most of these have been through wildcards. I think, in fact, this might be her first one that she doesn't make on a wildcard. Is that right? Because she would have played US Open twice and then Australia once, but I think Australia was maybe with that USTA wildcard. But I might be wrong here. But nonetheless, one of the best talents in the world as well right now, and she is making it through here. Linda Fruvirtova, I think, could be quite interesting because in the last few weeks, somewhat similarly to Jarry, okay, maybe she wasn't as flawless in the qualies, but some stability at least seems to have been restored in her game. That's also a fascinating career path with the Chennai title a couple of years ago and then not following it up really. Zhang Shuai, last year she had that losing streak, and I think she's still super fun to watch when she's on it. Flat hitter again, so somebody who can also obviously play at the net considering her amazing doubles career. So I think I also would like to see her in the main draw producing something. Sasnovic, Martic, I think also these kind of like veteran names. I think Sasnovic, I've said it many times on the show, but I think she's so underrated and always kind of like underappreciated. And Martic has had a number of decent runs at Wimbledon before. Another player with so much variety who's lost it a little bit recently. I mean, not lost the variety, but just lost her game, lost her edge. It's definitely gonna be fun to watch her in the main draw. That's really all I can say, to be honest with you, on the women's event. Wimbledon actually does it in a way where I could have watched a lot more of women's action on Tuesday, but that's a day when I just wasn't able to follow much tennis at all until the evening. So unfortunately, I missed that. And otherwise, like today or yesterday, I felt like my brain was about to explode just trying to follow all the men's matches. So that's really all I could do in that sense. By the way, Victoria Mboko as well, losing to Priscilla Hon today, right? That was one of the biggest disappointments, I guess, for most tennis fans, who think that Mboko is going to be like one of the next big things or something like that. 5 match points. That hurts, that stinks, but she could still make it because she is one of the 4 players who are in the random order in the lucky loser queue, along with Sierra, Valentova, and Montgomery, I think. So maybe she can make it. And Andrescu losing was a pretty big story too. As you can see, Karsten Braunstein, so the player who beat her in the All-Canadian duel, made it through. But it's also quite interesting that Andreescu for 2 slams in a row wasn't able to qualify. And maybe that is the best example that we have of like how different it is, to be a favorite to qualify and to actually be in the main draw. Because Bianca, obviously, maybe not at Wimbledon, because at Roland Garros there was so much hype after Rome. Maybe at Wimbledon it wasn't quite like that. Like her grass lead-ups weren't, that fantastic, like the Rybakina win at Rome. But nonetheless, I think most everybody expected her to make it through. And maybe the loss to Branston was not quite as much of a shock as it was against Hibino at Roland Garros. But nonetheless, I do think that this is also one of the bigger stories we got, simply because she was the main favorite to qualify for 2 events in a row and did not make it. And of course, she's a former Grand Slam champion, so there's always going to be eyes on her. Who I think is going furthest at SW19? From which pool of players? You mean from just qualifiers? I mean, without the draw, it's going to be really difficult. From the list we have right now on the women's side, I mean, Townsend could be somebody who beats like even a seed, right? I'm thinking about it. Is Jovic ready for something big? I'm not sure. So yeah, out of these, I would say Townsend is the one I wouldn't want to play. She's made big upsets before. Who was it? Pegula that she beat last year, I think. Obviously a playstyle as well that like doesn't give you much rhythm. So yeah, from this list, I wouldn't want to play Taylor Townsend. Maybe Jovic for the potential. Maybe Shuai Zhang again, because she can kind of like take the game away from you, but I don't really think she's hitting it off as often as Taylor will. Outside of that, I probably, if I'm a high seed, I probably shouldn't be too afraid of most of them. Maybe Diane Parry as well. Just the slice and the hands and, kind of like how much variety she can bring in. Maybe she can mess you up in the first round. Whereas for the men, I mean, I'd like to say Leandro Riedi, but I'm just not sure if he's ready for that just that sort of a workload, which is going to be a very high intensity 5-setter against some high seed. Like I don't know if I see it. As I said, Misolic, even considering the form, I don't think he's actually that strong on grass. Mannarino, I wouldn't want to play, but at this stage of your career, I mean, if you're a top seed, you should not be afraid of Adrian Mannarino, even if you know that you're not gonna have fun, right? You're gonna be forced again to just like play very uncomfortable shots time and time again. But I don't think you should be too afraid of Mannarino by this stage. Who else was there? I mean, I don't know. Alex Bolt, after playing against Ruud last year, I'm kind of thinking most seeds probably get him too. Zhukayev, yeah, the serve is there, but like, are you actually going to be afraid of him in a best of 5 format? If you're a seed, probably not. At least most seeds. Is Baez still seated at slams? No, probably not. Arthur Cazaux, maybe. I think that's a solid shout as well. I would question if maybe Mochizuki wouldn't be somebody that's, if I'm not a powerful player, if I'm not somebody who can really knock him off, let's say, just the ability to dictate it all and just force him to defend all the time, like maybe I would be afraid of that. But honestly, Nico Jarry, I don't know why he's in a shorter version of his name there on the screen that we have here. But yeah, I mean, if he plays like he did in the qualies, he almost beat as a stretch, but almost took Alcaraz to 5 sets. I don't think is a stretch 2 years ago. So I think, and by the way, this is another one where Zakharova is misspelled. Why is everybody misspelling her name? Anyway, yeah, I would say Jarry out of the men's. Yeah, that's the guy you don't want to play. Otherwise, yeah, maybe Cazaux, maybe Riedi, but all of these youngsters, they have some question marks still because they just barely came back from injuries, right? That even includes Jaime Faria if we want to go there. I don't think Misolic is going to be that dangerous on grass, but obviously he could win a match or two. Why not? But yeah, Jarry is the one who could go on a big run, maybe if with a good draw and obviously keeping up this level. Mannarino, I would be interested to think about as well, just because I think there are some players who absolutely hate him. Kukushkin told us in Porto, right, that he kind of is the Mannarino is the guy who is like trashing him the most. Obviously, Kukushkin is not going to be in the main draw, but maybe there's a Kukushkin somewhere among the seeds as well, who would just like literally cry about playing Adrian Mannarino in this one. I can imagine that. I mean, Mannarino does have that kind of game where somebody will definitely cry when they see him. So I don't think it's the most dangerous set of qualifiers in the long run, considering I have to say Jarry and Townsend as like the biggest options. I think it might be kind of similar like at the French, where at the French we were just saying that, okay, so third round is going to be probably the limit for the qualifiers, and that's what it was. I think 4 qualifiers got to the third round, so on the men's side, I mean. So that was quite high, maybe more than we thought, but yeah. But in the end, I don't think anyone made the second week. Sometimes, obviously, we have slams like that. I think it was the US Open in 21, right? Where Botic van de Zandschulp makes the quarters. I think Lloyd Harris also makes the 4th round of the quarters. Gojovcik makes the 4th round, maybe. I mean, there was basically so many of them just going into the second week. But I think looking at this set of players, I'm also thinking more third round than like quarterfinals for any of them. That's basically what I'm trying to say. That I think it's a good group of qualifiers in the sense that most of them with a good draw can win a match in the main draw. But I'm not sure anyone is ready for like a massive run. Mannarino against Medvedev, Matthew wants to see. Yeah, obviously a matchup with a lot of history. And didn't we just get it in Hertogenbosch as well? Or am I dreaming? No, we did get it, right? And Daniel was able to prevail, I think. They've been playing like kind of cyclically, or however you want to call it, in cycles anyway. In Hertogenbosch, I think their 4th match at this event. Medvedev is presently 5-4 up in the head-to-head. And how many matches have been on grass? 6 of them? Yeah, 6 of them. And Mannarino won their Wimbledon clash in 2018, but then Medvedev won in 2023. Obviously, this matchup has been shifting. Let's be clear about that. Medvedev won the last 3 matches without dropping a set, but it's always somewhat unpleasant. And we know that Daniil over the years has had a rough situation against most like guys like that. Lefty flat hitters, not even lefty, like Bautista Agut as well, Simon. He lost to Leonard Tien in Australia. So it would be pretty fun to see Mannarino Medvedev, I guess. But maybe you would kind of like start thinking about whether it's not too much in the best of 5 formats to expect from the veteran. No, I mean, that said, of course, Cameron Norrie beat Daniil at the French. Leonard Tien beat Daniil at Australia. So Adrian Mannarino in many ways could be like a natural follow-up to this sequence. And then at the US Open, I don't even know who beats him. Yoshihito Nishioka beats him at the US Open. And we have like a calendar slam of these like tricky lefty players. Anyway, I think we pretty much covered it all. In the chat, you had a lot of information about what's going to happen on the channel tomorrow. So there will be a watch-along from a phenomenal match of Alexandra Eala and Varvara Gracheva. I will not be on it. But you guys should definitely watch it. And it's the watch along that might just get us to 20k if the match is insane. Or maybe it's the final from Alex Eala. Anyway, also there will be a draw stream from Wimbledon at is it 11 a.m. Well, CEST, so I think 10 a.m. local time. They will formulate the draw in some way. I don't remember how they do it in Wimbledon, but I do think it's an actual ceremony. And we will know where these 32 players will land. In fact, even 33 with Marton Fucsovics as the first lucky loser. And maybe there will be more by the morning. Who the hell knows? Mute against Medvedev. Yeah, sure. Mute is another one for this weird divagation that I had. Yeah, absolutely. Mute, Nishioka, Shimizu, somebody like that would have to then join the sequence after Mannarino. Mute will also be drawn, obviously, and he will also play tomorrow in Mallorca, but I don't see what that really matters for the stream. I don't know why I started talking about him even further. But yeah, I just wanted to say thank you. It was fun to sit here and talk about the qualifying for an hour. Hopefully you weren't too bored, and hopefully you enjoyed this solitary stream of mine as well. Tomorrow, remember about the content on the channel, and see ya.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.